I just knew. I knew it was bad.
I didn't know that I could be this angry. Or this sad. It's, I'm at a loss.
Imagine being dumped like trash in a shallow grave, barely covered by a handful of leaves and dirt, only to be found 3.5 years later. That was the fate of 15-year-old Megan Nichols, whose trust and love were brutally betrayed by someone who claimed to care for her. While her family and friends desperately searched, prayed, and hoped for answers, Megan lay forgotten in the woods near her small Illinois hometown. Her so-called boyfriend, Brody Murbarger, had manipulated her, controlled her, threatened her family, and then took her life, all the while dating another girl. He would have almost gotten away with it were it not for a big plot twist in December 2017. This is the story of teenage obsession turned deadly, and it will leave you angry. But we need to tell Megan's story. Music poured out of Megan like sunshine. She was always singing, always playing her ukulele, always filling rooms with laughter and warmth. Her mom, Kathy Jo, said their house never knew silence, but that was the best part of living with Megan. She had this way of making everyone around her happier just by being herself. The bond between Megan and her mom was so deep. Growing up, it had been just the two of them taking on life together. Kathy Jo had Megan on July 18, 1998, when she was barely more than a kid herself, and maybe that's why they clicked so perfectly. My relationship with Megan was very close. We did everything together. They shared everything, from their weirdest thoughts to their biggest dreams, their dumbest jokes to their deepest fears. When one of them started laughing, the other knew exactly why, without a word being said. At school, Megan brought that same light everywhere she went. She threw herself into everything she loved, cheering her heart out at games, playing volleyball until she was breathless, pouring her soul into every Glee Club performance. She was that friend who would show up to church and somehow make even hymns sound fun, the kind of person who would drop everything to help someone who was feeling down. 4 years, it was just Megan and Kathy Jo's little world of two. Then Jared came into their lives, and instead of changing things, he made their happiness even bigger. They became this perfect little family unit, the kind that you would see laughing together at the local diner or singing along to car radios on long weekend drives. Everything seemed to be falling into place. But life has a cruel way of taking the brightest lights and snuffing them out. And lurking behind Megan's sunny world was a darkness that no one saw coming, a darkness wearing the face of someone she thought she could trust. The nightmare started so innocently, again, with music. Megan and Brody Murbarger had known each other since they were kids, but now, in high school, their shared love of singing brought them back together in Glee Club. Brody was 2.5 years older, and he already carried himself like he owned the world. He had that dangerous kind of charm that makes you ignore all the red flags. At the 2013 homecoming dance, Brody showed his true colors for the first time. He came with his girlfriend, Kendra. Megan came with a sweet boy from church. But Brody had other plans. Right there on the dance floor, he pulled Megan away from her date and into his arms, not caring who got hurt. Megan's date went home alone, and Kendra sat on the bleachers crying. And Brody, he just smirked, proud of the chaos he had created. Everyone thought he was a piece of work, but he thought he was powerful. What came next was sick. Brody didn't choose between the girls, he played them both. While telling Megan she was the love of his life, he kept Kendra on the hook too. His best friend, Kyle Ellis, later revealed how Brody would actually brag about it, laughing about how he had 2 girls wrapped around his finger. He treated their hearts like toys that he could break for fun. But the cruelest part, he turned love into a tool for control. Most guys like to show off their cars or sports trophies. Brody showed off how many hearts he could break at once. He played these young girls' emotions like it was all some sick game that he had to win. And the whole time, he was hiding something even darker behind that charming smile. Thank God for moms who can smell a predator from a mile away. Kathy Jo knew something was wrong with Brody the moment she met him. She saw past his perfect student act and fake smile. Her gut screamed that this 18-year-old had no business pursuing her 15-year-old daughter. So she laid down the law, no dating until Megan turned 16. I'd had it at that point. He's using her, and you're 15, he's 18. This is over. That's when Brody showed exactly who he was. Instead of respecting a mother trying to protect her child, He stormed into their home like he owned it, standing in their living room. He had the nerve to tell Kathy Jo she was crazy, that she needed medication, that she couldn't control her own daughter. And then came the threats. He'd call Child Protective Services. He said he'd tell them lies about her, make her lose Megan forever. Most teenagers would back down when a parent says no, but Brody wasn't most teenagers. He wasn't going to let anyone take away his control, not even Megan's own mother. The scariest part? While Kathy Jo was desperately trying to keep her daughter safe, Brody and Megan were trading around 150 secret texts every day. The messages police would later uncover painted a chilling picture. Brody was working Megan's mind, planting ideas about running away together, pushing their relationship into intimate territory, stuff he'd later lie about to police when they started asking questions. Every message was another thread in his web. Every sweet nothing was another chain binding Megan closer to someone who saw her as a possession, not a person. And all the while, her mom could only watch helplessly as her worst fears started coming true. Trail, July 3, 2014. It started just like any other summer day. Megan went for a bike ride, something she'd normally do to quiet her mind or start the day. She'd always ask her mom if she was okay with it. She said, "Do you care if I go on a bicycle ride?" And I said, "I don't care, just don't be doing anything you're not supposed to be doing." But during that ride, she stopped at an ATM and took out $200. And sure enough, Megan was at the ATM that day. Looking back, that was the first sign something was wrong, the last normal moment before everything shattered. That evening, Megan went shopping with her mom. She was being her usual self, joking around, looking for cool summer outfits. Then suddenly, she said her stomach hurt. When Kathy Jo took her home around 9 p.m., they hugged tight and said, "I love you" to each other. She gave me a hug and told me she loved me. And that's the last time I saw her. Those 3 words would haunt Kathy Jo forever. If only she'd known they'd be the last words she'd ever hear from her daughter. 2 hours later, Kathy Jo felt something was wrong. "I just got this sick feeling that I needed to go check on Megan." Call it mother's instinct. She rushed to check Megan's room and found an empty bed. But that wasn't even the worst part. There on the bed lay Megan's phone, completely wiped clean. What teenager leaves without their phone? It was like finding a piece of her daughter's soul, abandoned. I just knew. I knew it was bad. I immediately called my mom. Kathy Jo's mom drove over, and they went through Megan's room again. That's when they found the letter. The words were in Megan's handwriting, but the voice was all wrong. This wasn't the girl who filled their home with music and laughter. The note said, "I love you, but I am never going to be happy here." This cold, distant note told Kathy Jo not to look for her daughter. Called it a waste of time to spend a lifetime searching for someone who doesn't want to be found. Imagine reading those words about your baby girl. Imagine knowing, deep in your gut, that something terrible has happened, but having this fake note telling you to just give up and move on. This was not Megan. This was someone else's words coming through Megan's pen. And somewhere out there in the darkness, a mother's worst fears were already coming true. The cops didn't care. Teenagers run away all the time, they said, brushing off a terrified mother's pleas for help. She'll come back when she's ready. But Kathy Jo knew better. She knew her daughter, and she knew exactly who to suspect. At 7:30 a.m. on July 4th, while other families were getting ready for barbecues and fireworks, Kathy Jo and her mother drove to Brody's house. What they found made their blood run cold. Brody was outside in the early morning, meticulously washing his car. Who does that? Who wakes up on a holiday to clean their car while their friend is missing? While Kathy Jo's instincts pointed straight to Brody, the police went in a completely different direction. They targeted Megan's own father, Jackson Nichols. One morning, a whole army stormed Jackson's home in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I had 12 armed men show up and say, "Where is your daughter? You are under arrest." They claimed that he was an unregistered offender who must have taken Megan. But it was all a horrible mistake. The whole sex offender thing, just a clerical error from years ago, a case that had been dismissed in literally 5 minutes. But because some paperwork never made it from Illinois to Oklahoma, an innocent father spent a month in jail while his daughter's real killer walked free. That's bull. I didn't know that I could be this angry or this. I'm at a loss for words. Jackson was broken by the thought that while he sat behind bars, the truth about what happened to his daughter was slipping further away. When the police finally looked in the right direction, they discovered Megan's last phone calls had all been to Brody. The last 3 calls, I want to say, that she made before she disappeared, or supposedly ran away from home, were made to this boy. Even worse, Brody's dad was an Illinois state policeman. Maybe that gave him an extra delusion of grandeur, that whatever heinous thing he'd do, his daddy would protect him. But Brody soon found out that this was not the case. Every time the police questioned him, Brody's story shifted like quicksand. First, he and Megan were just friends. Then, okay, maybe they were dating, but he had nothing to do with her disappearance. He claimed he spent hours searching for her that night, but conveniently couldn't prove it because he left his phone at his girlfriend's house. How convenient. Then he posted this on Facebook. Okay, this has gone on long enough. I had nothing to do with this and I have nothing to hide. I shouldn't even have to defend myself if I'm not involved. To think that he was busier complaining about the police questioning him than accepting any responsibility. Around Fairfield, you can still see signs saying, "We remember Megan," in honor of Nichols, showing that her hometown has not forgotten her since her disappearance. In December 2014, the small town of Fairfield refused to let Megan become just another missing persons poster. They fought for her with everything they had. Search parties combed every inch of ground. Prayer vigils lit up the night. Her face appeared everywhere, on wristbands, highway signs, even church signs. In 2015, her friends and family poured their hearts into a YouTube video, begging Megan to come home. They promised it was safe, that everything would be okay. They just wanted to know that she was alive. But Megan would never see that video. On December 26, 2017, a couple looking for firewood found her remains in a shallow grave in Wayne County, just a few miles from Fairfield. Her skull reflected the sunlight, catching their eye. DNA tests would later confirm the horrible truth. Megan had never made it out of town that night. While her community prayed and searched, while her mother held on to hope, Megan had been lying there all along, discarded like trash in the woods. The woman who found her revealed that she knew Megan personally. She lived in the area and was friendly with her mom. "It's hard enough to find something like that," she said. "But to turn around and realize you know the person, it's just 10 times worse." Finding Megan's body was just the beginning. The real bombshell dropped when investigators took a second look at Brody's old car, the one he had gotten rid of after accidentally crashing it into a tree. Under the trunk liner, hidden from view, they found what they had missed years before: Megan's blood. All those years ago, while Brody was washing his car at dawn on July 4th, he had been trying to hide the evidence of what he had done to her. But Brody's own mouth would help seal his fate. His former best friend, Kyle, wore a wire, recording their conversations. And Brody slipped up, big time. He knew Megan had been strangled before anyone, but the killer could have known that detail. His dark secret and horrible personality were finally catching up with him. A missing persons case that later became a murder trial had its final chapter today. The man convicted of killing Megan Nichols learned his fate in Fairfield, Illinois. During the course of the trial, prosecutors presented evidence against Brody that included thousands of text messages between himself and the victim. Megan's blood was also found in Brody's car. The jury saw right through him. It took them just 2 hours to find him guilty: first-degree murder, concealing a homicide, home invasion. The judge slammed him with 50 years in prison. Brody won't even be eligible for parole until 2070, when he's 75. Decades in a cell to think about the young life he stole. Dr. Grande, who analyzed the case, described Brody as grandiose, arrogant, manipulative, overconfident, irresponsible, entitled, and lacking any empathy, a textbook psycho killer. The kind of person who could kill someone they claimed to love just because they couldn't control them anymore. When Megan probably changed her mind about running away, Brody couldn't handle losing his power over her. So he strangled her, erasing her light from the world forever. On February 2, 2023, nearly 9 years after she disappeared, Megan finally came home to rest at Cumberland Presbyterian Church, the same church where she once sang in the choir. The same church where she met that sweet boy she was supposed to go to homecoming with before Brody stole her away. At her celebration of life, people shared stories of her laughter, her music, her kindness. But for Kathy Jo, justice doesn't erase the agony of losing her baby girl. No mother should have to bury their child. No mother should have to spend years searching for answers while their daughter lies forgotten in a shallow grave in the woods. Right now, in your town, there's probably a girl just like Megan, full of dreams, thinking she's found true love. And there might be someone like Brody too, hiding evil behind a charming smile. Pay attention to those red flags. Listen when your gut screams that something is wrong. Because young love can turn deadly when control masquerades as passion. In Fairfield's church choir, they still hear echoes of Megan's voice. In the high school halls, they remember her laughter. She wasn't just another victim. She was a daughter who shared secrets with her mom. A friend who could light up anyone's darkest day. A teenager who deserved to grow up and chase her dreams. Instead, she became a warning that evil doesn't always look evil. Sometimes, it looks like the sweet boy from Glee Club. Sometimes, it hides behind an "I love you." Next time you hear about a missing girl, remember Megan. Remember that behind every headline is someone's whole world, someone's baby girl who deserved better than a shallow grave. Her song was silenced too soon. But her story might save others. Share it, because maybe, just maybe, we can stop another young girl from becoming another Megan Nichols. Thanks for watching, you guys. What are your thoughts on this tragic case? And how do you think we can address red flags if we notice them in someone else's relationship? Leave a comment down below. And before you go, don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. Yeah, see you soon.